Welcome back to the Creative Liberty Podcast. I am your host, Major Chisholm, and today in the studio with me, I have a Mr. Josh McGeehan. And Josh McGeehan is a birder. And if you don't know what that is, well, we're about to jump into it and find out. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, thanks, Major. The pleasure's all mine.
So it's we're FaceTiming one another. You're at your quarantined house, and I'm at mine. And
yeah, I'm waving at you.
We can actually see each other. I kind of like the FaceTime / record it on the podcast. These will probably be the quarantine chronicles or something, this whole series of interviews as we're at our respective places per government order. So let's see. We had some technical difficulties, so just for our audience, which is why we're FaceTiming and doing the podcast. So if there's any cutting out or anything like that after I go back and edit and listen to it, that is why. If for our audience they can't hear anything. So
I'm sure some of your listeners will actually want to see the video just so they can see us. I mean, I think part of the problem with podcasts are you don't get to enjoy the beauty of the person.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
And it's a compliment to myself too.
I don't know that the FaceTime video actually records this somewhere, but we'll definitely have the audio, and I can probably put up a picture of your face in the show notes. So,
that's great.
But there are podcasts that are recorded with cameras, and so like Joe Rogan and a bunch of others. He's just the most famous one. So, all right, Josh, you're a birder. What is a birder? For those who don't know.
Yeah, I think the most simple definition is just someone who enjoys birds. So I think it's probably there's some ambiguity probably with the term in that saying, oh, I'm an artist. Well, do your paintings or does your art sell for thousands of dollars, or do I do it just casually? I think both people, do I do it professionally or do I do it as a hobby? Both people would consider themselves artists, or others would consider them an artist. So I think the word can kind of be broad. It can include terms like ornithology, or an ornithologist, which would be more of a professional and would look at the specific dimensions of looking at birds or observing birds that might actually lead to an academic exercise, which might not be of interest to people. But there might be just the casual person who enjoys birds and maybe has 2 or 3 bird feeders and just has maybe a little field guide that says, oh, look, we have a chickadee on our bird feeder, or there's a goldfinch. So it can be anywhere on that gamut.
And where do you fall into that? Are you an say the word ornithologist?
Ornithologist. I would say I find different aspects of ornithology interesting, but bone structure of birds, maybe feeding habits, the way birds mate. I find some of that stuff interesting, but not necessarily fascinating. I'd probably take more of an artistic, so I'd be probably more of just a bird lover or a bird enjoyer. So bird feeders, like observing birds, seeing new types of birds, enjoying birds just for the simplicity of their beauty, their behavior, birded. And then that kind of goes into other areas of just enjoying bird art, that might be a good explanation.
No, you're more than just someone who has the bird feeder, but you're not an it's early.
Ornithologist. Yeah, you're doing great.
Thank you. So we were talking before the show, and you had mentioned your birdhouse. There was no birds on your birdhouse because it was cold outside. So I have a question about birdhouses.
Yeah.
We bought a hanging birdhouse, and it's hanging from a limb, and it's a little ceramic thing for birds to go in. No birds have gone in. And it's hanging from a rope, and Shanna thinks that birds don't like movement, so it needs to be a more stationary birdhouse.
Well, You might have several problems, and this is where an ornithologist might be more helpful than just a bird lover, because they could not diagnose the problem. They could probably make up some theories, maybe some hypotheses.
More
No,
more than one hypothesis.
yeah. Let's just say theories. They may have a lot of theories. It could be you might be trying to get the wrong birds in the wrong house. Like, you wouldn't want a barn owl house for a field sparrow, or you wouldn't really want a house that's to attract mountain bluebirds that's also for maybe a platform for an osprey. So you may be even having a bird house that is for a bird that's not locally present. So if you have a house that would be perfect for a marsh wren, but you don't live by a marsh, then that's not going to work very well. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I mean, probably even a better example of how you're really going to get birds is a bird feeder. But if you're not supplying the right food for your bird, then you're not going to attract any birds.
All right.
So that might be part of the problem.
And we have squirrels, but the squirrels haven't gone into the birdhouse either. So I thought about just putting some corn in it and letting the squirrels have it as a feeder.
Yeah.
And just watch them kind of flip around.
Yeah. I mean, squirrels are entertaining unless you're trying to get birds and they're a nuisance.
Right.
But this isn't about squirrels.
No. Well, that's a different podcast.
You might have another friend that might have some insight.
Squirrelologist. So my parents loved when they lived in Mississippi. They had hummingbirds, and yes. I have my mom's hummingbird feeder, which I want to hang out here in Colorado and attract hummingbirds.
Yeah.
So can I do that? Are there hummingbirds?
Yeah, you absolutely can. Depending on your elevation in Colorado, you're definitely going to get broadtail hummingbirds. You might get a rufous if your elevation is above 7,000 feet. It's probably not your case, but if you go up the Poudre Canyon in Colorado near Fort Collins, or if you make your way up to Estes Park, you'll find another breed called rufous. You may also, during migration season, you might get a black-chinned hummingbird or a calliope. The calliope is the smallest hummingbird in Colorado. Oh, nice. So there's a chance of probably 3 different types of hummingbirds in the Loveland, Fort Collins area. But primarily you're just going to have broadtail, which is wonderful, marvelous. Now in Mississippi, you probably had a little bit of you probably had ruby throat instead of the broadtail. Again, very slight difference in anatomy on those 2 different birds. Another key thing with the hummingbird feeder is they like it really sweet initially, just a water and sugar solution.
Yep.
That's 1 part to 1 part.
Yep.
But eventually you can cut that back to 2 parts water, 1 part sugar. Kind of like a simple syrup that you might use for your whiskey sour if you drink your old fashions a little sweeter.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, and that's what. Yeah, I would definitely help Mom make the whiskey sours for the hummingbirds, and they loved it. I mean, we had thousands when we put the whiskey sour out instead of just the sweet water.
Yeah, in fact, you can actually use the same makeup and share it. I like a little bit of lemon in mine, and I don't know. I think you'd have a little trouble getting a hummingbird to come to something with some bourbon in it, but I don't think that would work.
Do they like lemon though?
Yeah. Also, forget the lemon. Maybe just the simple syrup.
Okay.
But you can share that.
So I grew up in Mississippi, and we would go hunting. And I come from a long line of hunters. Not that I'm a hunter today, but when you're, so I'm going to make an analogy or a comparison here to bird watching, to hunting. Like, so when hunters go out, they'll put like camo on their face, or they'll put like doe in heat on their face. So when you're going bird watching, do you need to like put pigeon poop on you, or like do like bird in heat so that you kind of mask your scent?
That's a great question. Birds aren't so sensitive to smell like mammals, so yeah. When you're hunting a deer, you definitely want to roll in some dung or get some urine, buck urine, to get the ladies to come. birds are going to be more sensitive to movement than necessarily scent. So the best thing is to position yourself where you can't be seen. Hide behind a tree, maybe create a bird blind. And especially with waterfowl, and this would apply for a hunter as well, which I'm very much in favor of hunting of birds. It controls a lot of the population sizes, and we've seen these for hunters. We've seen these advertisements on TV, but actually hunting licenses actually provide income for professional ornithologists, scientists, conservation. So it's actually good for bird populations and the continuation of birds. So with that said, really, no pigeon poops needed. You don't have to wear a feather headdress or anything like that if you're going. Just normal clothes, and maybe just try and be aware of your noise level.
Okay.
Just like hunting.
Gotcha. Okay. So out here in Colorado, where are the best places to look for birds or to view birds? I don't want to insult you by calling it bird watching. But
no, bird watching, that's a legit term.
Okay.
And it's kind of the layman's term.
Okay.
And I would call myself a bird watcher. In fact, if I'm talking to someone who doesn't really know what that is, that's how I wouldn't call myself a birder, because then you're missing the point of communication, and that you're trying to explain something instead of simply getting to the content you want to cover.
Perfect. Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's my pleasure. What was the question again?
So, where's the best place to go view birds here in Colorado?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it just depends on the kind of birds you want to see. Right now, we're working ourselves. So today is April 3rd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. We're working ourselves into a wonderful time to see migratory birds, and the summer birds are coming. Winter birds are leaving. So April and May, and then September is a wonderful time to look at birds. September, October, as things are kind of moving in and out. Here in Colorado, the best places to go, actually Colorado is one of the greatest states for viewing birds, because we have so much topography differentiation. So we've got mountains, we've got desert. If you go to the western slope, we've got plains, we've got big bodies of water. So really, some of the best places I would say to see eastern birds are Pawnee grasslands out near, is it Briggsdale?
I'm not sure.
No, that's not right. Pawnee grasslands, look it up. It's a great place to go to see spring and fall migration. Mountain birds, I mean, just anywhere in the mountains. Any place you go skiing, Dillon, around Breckenridge, Aspen, there's tons of mountain birds. Any place in rural Colorado in the mountains, you're going to have lots of birds because there's less of a human footprint. Western slope, any of the state monuments like in Grand Junction, anywhere in those canyon type areas, even going into Utah, lots of desert birds that are really unique. So just it really depends on what you want to see. Our bigger reservoirs, if you have proper gear, you can see probably a variety of ducks, 20 different species of ducks.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it just kind of depends what you want. I think there's some technology that can really help you with that. I'd recommend 2 apps for your iPhone or your Android that you could use. There's one called Bird's Eye. It's a little bit of a scientific app, but it'll give you bird locations. It'll also give you a counter, so you can count how many birds you've seen. If you like badges, they give you badges and things like that. Apps are amazing for that. And then Cornell Lab of Ornithology also has a bird app. What it's specifically good at is thinking, oh, I see a bird in my tree. It's orange and white, and it is in the tree, and it's the size of a robin. What is it? You type this in, and then it synthesizes the information. It says, this bird could be one of these 3 birds. Is it common, uncommon, rare? And so the other thing with that app that's really nice is it gives you bird sounds. And a lot of people don't know, but a bird may make 3, 4, 5, 6 different sounds. So thinking, oh, what does that sound? Well, that's a chickadee, a black-capped chickadee, and it also makes this sound and this sound. So, oh, I might have a new bird. Well, you may have a new bird, but it may also be an alternative song.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. That might have been a little bit long. So if you need to edit that down for bore factor, I totally understand.
Nope. That was perfect. And I'll put those apps in our show notes in the description section.
Yeah. You might even want to put them on your own personal device.
I might. Yeah. If I become a birdie. Birdie? Not a birdie. That's like a brony.
No, a birdie, I think that's a term in golf whenever you get one under par.
That's true. This is true. So what birds are your favorite? Do you have favorites? Favorites? I'm sure you can't just narrow it down to one.
Yeah, that's tricky. I think, I knew you would ask this question, and that's a really hard one. My wife, who she is, I would say she's a birder on that spectrum that we talked about.
Right.
But not like me, but by association, when we go for walks, she will observe things. And she makes the joke that every time I see a bird that I haven't seen in a while, I'll say, oh, that's one of my favorites.
Right.
And
okay.
So I could narrow it down to a few. It's kind of like asking a movie lover that loves movies, what's your favorite movie?
Sure. So my question was, what birds are your favorite?
Yeah. So I could do that. Colorado has a bird called a brown creeper. It's kind of a plain, ordinary bird. In fact, I have it tattooed on my arm. I have several bird tattoos. One so we talked about the ornithology side. This is a little off topic. Mine definitely probably moves towards art. So there's certain artists that I really enjoy their interpretations of birds. We have, books and stuff, that kind of thing. That just, because you can't always go out and see birds, but I think to bring birds into my home has been an amazing thing. So ceramic artists that I really enjoy, graphic designers that have done things for me that are it just brings me tons of joy. So I think birding is, for an aesthetic point of view, has been really great. So probably a brown creeper would be one of my favorite birds. A lot of it's based on location. So if you go to Mississippi, you're going to have a whole new palette of birds compared to if you're in Colorado, or if you go to San Diego, or if you go up to the Northeast. So I would say I have probably favorite birds in all of these places. Some of the birds that are very common, we don't get cardinals, northern cardinals in Colorado. So yeah, if I'm in the Midwest, I mean, they're stunning. And even someone who doesn't enjoy birds will probably think, wow, that's beautiful. Or whenever you see an osprey dive into a lake and catch a fish, you don't have to be a birder to just appreciate that majesty and that beauty.
Yeah.
So I would say that some of the birds that are probably my favorite are kind of the non-showy ones that don't really get the attention. So a brown creeper, I really love. There's a South African bird called the Cape Baddis, which is just kind of a bird that lives among the thorns and has really beautiful coloration, but you just don't notice it. And that's the thing that I think has really brought my great appreciation for birds is you think about a garden, and if you just had a garden with just a bunch of crocuses, it'd be like, oh, that's nice. But whenever you start having daffodils, and then you have irises, and then you have roses and tulips, all of a sudden it's just amazing. I think even someone who doesn't love or appreciate birds now, if they put up a bird feeder and they really watch, they think, I didn't realize. Here in Colorado, if you put up a bird feeder with just simple black oil sunflower seeds and you watch it for a year, I would say you probably have 10 to 15 different species visit that bird feeder. But we just kind of think, oh, there's a robin, or oh, I don't like magpies, or oh, there's the doves again. They're making a mess on my patio.
Right.
But I think if we just stop and slow down and just look, I think, and get a couple things. You don't need an expensive pair of binoculars, but look at the bird.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the feather patterns on a robin, for example. It's unbelievable. Oh my gosh, there's little white feathers all around the eye. Mm-hmm. Oh, look at the stomach feathers. They get gradually darker as they go up the breast. Oh, look at the vibrancy of an orange head on a robin through a pair of binoculars, and you'll be hooked.
Yeah, well, when we were growing up as kids in Mississippi, I remember my brother, I don't know where he saw this or learned it, but he built a bird trap, and it was like this kind of pyramid thing, and he built like a figure 4 thing that kind of propped it up, and it had bread in it, and he put breadcrumbs out, and we would wait, and like the blackbirds would come and they would peck, or bluebirds, or the cardinals, the redbirds would come, and we would catch them, and they would jiggle, so the little 4 thing was just kind of leaned up, and it would fall, and the bird would be trapped underneath this little pyramid of sticks, and so then we'd reach in and grab the bird, and we would look at all those feathers and see all the different colors, because from a distance it may look, the robin may look orange on its belly, but it's a gradual orange, or the blackbird's feathers have this iridescent sheen to them, and you can see all the different colors in the black, and it was just really cool.
Yeah.
And then we would tie a string to their legs and let them fly, and we would have a little kite. So that was probably not the best thing to do, but we would eventually let them go. But yeah, I do remember.
It might have been fun for them. It's hard to probably estimate. Probably not, but
yeah. So how do you track birds? I mean, do you look for tiny footprints, or how do you figure out when I'm sure it's migration patterns and things like that. But if you're going to go out and on a day and look for birds, how do you know where to go to look? Like, do you just, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's where technology is so helpful. That Bird's Eye app that I mentioned earlier, mm-hmm. It'll tell you birding hotspots. It'll tell you what's been recently seen, what you can expect to see in different places. So you pull up that app, and I'm guessing some of your listeners may be beer drinkers, and you think, oh, where's a brewery? I'm sure there's an app for finding where the breweries are.
Right.
And you think, okay, here are 4 locations, or where you pull up Google Maps and you say, where are the targets? And there's 3 targets. That's what this Bird's Eye app does. It's a map that says birding hotspots. You can click on it and see what kind of birds are there. And so I think a lot of people love lists that are bird watchers, or anyone who kind of enjoys just accomplishment will think, okay, what haven't I seen? What have I seen? What would I like to see?
Right.
So I think that's probably the best way, especially that Bird's Eye app will tell you what's been recently seen, and you can shorten the timer. What's been seen the last day? What's been seen the last week?
Okay.
And so that's probably the way I would go. Anywhere, especially that. I think this is the thing too. Like if you're already a hiker, or if you're already a fisherman, mm-hmm. anytime you're out in nature, that's where I just tell people, hey, you're already doing this. Take a pair of binoculars and just be more observant to the things around you. Like, okay, yep, it's beautiful looking at the mountain, and oh, there's deer. In fact, one of the things that got me really into birding is just thinking, I love wildlife, but in my backyard, there's probably no wildlife. I might have 2 squirrels,
right,
and maybe a rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
But if on a day, if I'm just looking out the window, I might see 5-6 species of birds just in my own backyard.
Okay. So question, we're obviously both in Colorado. I grew up in Mississippi, lived in Tennessee for a long time. It's much more lush and greener in Mississippi and Tennessee. So do you think it's easier, and I forget where you're originally from, but is it
Colorado? Yeah.
Okay. So is is it easier to see birds out here because we don't have as much vegetation versus, say, back in the South where it's a lot more green? And if so, people listening in the South, what's a good way for them to just, kind of like you said, just get out in nature and start looking? But I guess it would be harder to find them, because they're up in the trees with the green, with, binoculars and stuff. So, but
yeah,
I used to go trail running around some of the lakes there, and there were people out with binoculars looking at birds, like in groups, or early in the morning it'd be 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I have. So when I have been even to the Midwest or to the South, it's more of a patience game.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the birds are covered in foliage. So you start really learning sounds for birds. So identifying birds by sound. And then that's where I love that Cornell Lab of Ornithology app, because you can mimic sounds, you can call birds. Now, this may be illegal in some places, so you might check on that. But if you don't really care about the legality, because you can confuse a bird. But to see a beautiful warbler, for example, that's going to be a small bird that flitters around a lot in the trees. There's probably 10 different species in Mississippi. Probably right now there's 20 different species in Mississippi. If I can identify a sound and I want to see a bird, being able to call it is a great thing. That's where I also think feeders are amazing, because you can bring your feeder out. Like even a northern cardinal, we've talked about that before. They love heavy vegetation. They love to call and sing, but usually they're hiding within the bushes. You bring that feeder out, it actually forces the bird to come out of the brush and actually see it clearly. But a lot of birds will just sit and wait patiently. They'll listen. They have their binoculars ready, and then they'll try and grab a glimpse of especially a bird that is relatively shy. Just like you would see with different breeds of dogs, they have different temperaments. Birds are the same. An eastern bluebird is going to have a very different temperament than maybe a gregarious magpie, right, or something to that effect.
Okay. And kind of going back to feeders, what's a good feeder to get? Like, does it need to be? Do you have to? So, explain this to me as if I were a 6-year-old. It's not just putting a plate with birdseed out, but all the way up to, like, do I need to dig a hole and pour cement and put a post and put a bird feeder on it, or what? Or just go to Home Depot and buy one?
Yeah, I think the beauty of feeding birds is it's relatively inexpensive, and having one good feeder is probably great for starters. Now, it really depends on a lot of things. Like if you have a big squirrel problem, then you might need a more expensive feeder that's got the mechanics and the design to eliminate squirrels. Something with springs and bungees in it that the squirrel gets on it, it shuts down the food availability. If you don't have squirrels, then you can go to Walmart and get something pretty inexpensive. There are great squirrel-proof feeders. A couple companies that I think make really great feeders is Brome, Brome. That's probably my favorite. They've done a lot of engineering things to keep squirrels specifically off your bird feeder, and just using good materials that'll allow your bird feeder to last forever. That'd probably be the one company I'd really endorse. I'm not getting paid by them anyway.
This is not a paid advertisement for Brome, but thank you very much.
No, but they do a good feeder. You can get those on Amazon or directly from their website. I think another thing that people don't think about is having a shallow bird bath, because not every bird eats seeds and nuts. Lots of birds eat insects, worms, and there's not an insect or a worm feeder.
Right.
So if you want to bring in, but all birds need water.
Okay.
So, and that's pretty easy. I mean, you could put, again, you might have to watch for squirrels, but if you don't mind squirrels drinking and bathing in it, which that can be entertaining as well.
True.
just getting something that is very shallow. So some bird baths are really decorative and have high sides and in deep water. Birds would rather creep into the water and feel safe. So finding something, even having an old plate or maybe one of those old sleds that you sled on in winter.
Yeah.
If you just fill it just a little bit, just that they can just get their feet wet, and then they'll bathe the rest of their body and flicker it up.
Okay.
And I think also watching a bird bathe is one of the most marvelous things.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to try this. When's the best time to put out a feeder and water? I mean, I know we're kind of going. We're officially into spring, even though there's snow on the ground. Thank you yesterday. Yeah. When's the best time to put out food and water?
Yeah, food. You can feed all the time, winter and summer. Birds won't. All birds are smart enough that it's an additional supplement to their diet. And I would encourage people to spend a little more money and just get black oil sunflower seeds. One, some birds will eat millet and different grains. If you buy the cheap bird seed, but most of it they'll throw out. You'll even see birds scooping away trying to get the black oil sunflower seeds.
Okay.
And that makes a mess of your grass. That's where you get crabgrass from. Yes, it's still a mess if you have the shells from a black oil sunflower seed, but I just get out and I just clean that up once a week and just throw the shells in the trash. But it's actually more economical just to buy black oil sunflower seeds because that's what they like and that's what they eat. And they're not just throwing it on the ground. Like some of that filler seed is kind of a waste. So you can keep that up all year. A bird bath, birds are always attracted to water. But obviously, if your bird bath is going to freeze, you have to watch that.
Right.
They do make heaters that you can put in your bird bath that just keeps the temperature right at 32 degrees. Birds love that in the winter. They're relatively inexpensive. You can find that stuff on Amazon. But yeah, the thing with the bird bath is you kind of have to dump it out and kind of just give it a scrub with a dirty old sponge. Don't add any chemicals or soap or anything. But once a week, you usually have to do that. But it does bring a whole new gamut of birds, and especially robins here in Colorado. And pretty much anywhere in the U.S., you'll find robins. Robins don't eat seed. So if you want to get a flock of robins to come into your yard, put out a little bird bath, and just watching them bathe it's really terrific.
Okay, cool. I sent you a link. Did you have a chance to look at the email I sent you?
Yeah, from your friend, your artist friend.
Yeah, what did you think about David Arm's work? I met David, friend, acquaintance, great guy, in Nashville, Tennessee, and amazing artist. And does a lot of bird art.
Okay, so when I look at bird art, there's a couple things that I really appreciate. In the back corner, on that back wall, most Marshalls, TJ Maxx. This is not a diss advertisement, but none of the birds are real on any of that thing, in any of that. So as I looked at, remind me of his name again, your friend.
David Arms.
Yeah, when I look at David's art, I'm like, wow, this is beautiful because he has a house wren. He has a ruby-throated hummingbird. Like his birds are real birds. But my favorite thing in bird art is when you take a real bird and then you put it in either a humorous or intellectually stimulating situation that's not real. So you have this contradiction of actual and either humorous or thought-provoking situation. So his piece on the Last Supper I was stunned and I just couldn't stop looking at it. I'd love to see it in real life. To see just his interpretation of simple sparrows, like a house sparrow,
right?
I believe it was, just representing the disciples, and this mourning dove, or I can't remember if it was a Eurasian or a mourning dove. It was one or the other, representing the Christ figure, and then to have this crow or this brewer's blackbird representing Judas. Oh, it was such an interesting thing of seeing something that's actually real. And one thing he's done beautifully is the birds are anatomical, so they're real birds in a artistic interpretation setting, which I think is just phenomenal. Another artist that beautiful. To have a ruby-throated hummingbird on a swing. That's funny. That's fun. I would love to see a house wren come to my teacup and sit on my teacup.
Right.
That's beautiful. Like, and it's whimsical and it's really fun. One of my favorite bird artists, is Mike Mitchell. He does work for Marvel, for Star Wars, and he's also a birder.
Yeah.
And again, not an advertisement, but I think his work is beautiful. He's a graphic designer, so all of his art is done on the computer, and he has limited edition prints. But one thing that he does is he keeps so it's on a plain, I guess it would be a beige type background, but then it's just a fat bird.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll do real birds, everything again, feather colors. They're brilliantly colored. The feathers, the beak, the eyes are all realistic. And then he'll make the birds bulbous. So he'll make them fat, in that he'll extend the stomach on them. And so it's all graphically done, but I think it's very humorous in that he's taken a bird that's everything is real about it, but then he's made them big or chubby.
Nice.
And I think then I have several artists that from different places, especially overseas, that have done bird art that are actual birds. But when you work in ceramics, they don't hold all of the things of an anatomical correct bird.
Sure. But
the colors and the interpretation is really interesting to see how an artist will work.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who I do enjoy, but I just think, and a lot of people love an Audubon print. Right. And James Audubon, he's done amazing things, and his art is amazing. But it's also very scientific. So I would also say when someone is getting into birds and interested in birds and researching birds, they should have two types of books. They should have a scientific book that tells you all the specifics and has anatomically correct drawings, a field guide to that degree. But I think also a book of artists that have captured birds in unique ways, because I think that also that'll also give us an interpretation of how we see birds in a different context of beauty.
That's great. Yeah, I like David Arm's work, and I'll have to look up Mike Mitchell as well, because I also love Marvel. But anyway,
yeah.
So they're kind of like quarantined birds. They've been quarantined, and so they're a little bit heavier.
Yeah, in fact, that's brought me some joy over the last couple of weeks. Is I was actually I was running, and usually I'm a slow enough runner that I can actually enjoy birds at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking, oh look, those goldfish finch are not practicing social distancing. Isn't that a beautiful thing? That the birds are going on with spring, just as if nothing were happening in April of 2020.
Well, if it was avian flu, then they might be practicing social distancing.
That is true. I also like that the birds are being a little naughty, that they're not obeying the law.
I love it. Yeah, giving a wing to the man.
Yeah.
So, what's one last thing you would like to tell people who are maybe wanting to get into birding? Some advice, some tips, some tricks. Take it away.
Yeah. I think just slow down is the number one thing. I would say slow down and just listen, especially this time. I mean, we are working ourselves April, May, and June. It's my favorite time of the year. And we're wanting to be out after cold winter, and just again, I just think looking out at our flower beds and seeing things popping through this hard soil, and seeing our lilacs getting ready to at least or leaf out, and then they're going to flower. Or looking at the crabapple trees, and there's one of them even is starting to have a smell. I think we do that with other areas, or looking at the grass starting to turn green. I think just listen and observe. And I think getting a simple, you don't need a $30 or $40 brome feeder. I think that's a really nice feeder to have because it has some special features. But get a $5 bird feeder from Ace or from Walmart, and just put it up and put some black oil sunflower seeds and see what happens. It may take a week, but the birds will find it, and you'll see some amazing things, especially coming into spring. I would say just use your ears, listen to the birds and think, oh, what is that bird? And then I guess the final thing I would say is you don't have to go out of your way. If you're taking a walk with your honey as you're walking around the park, maybe take your eyes off the honey and look at, well, what kind of bird is that? And I think you'll be amazed. I think the next step is you don't need a $500 pair of binoculars. You may eventually want that, but start out and just get a $50, $100 pair of binoculars, and just because that will increase your appreciation in that you'll see some amazing things. Final thing I'd say, and I didn't even think about this till now, the bird feeder that I think is the top seller on Amazon is one that you can put on your kitchen window or on a window that doesn't have a screen. And it's just really a plastic box that you put black oil sunflower seeds in. Those are amazing. And because the finches will just come right in and eat at your window. You don't even need binoculars.
Okay.
And you can see something that close.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And it's cheap. It's probably under $20.
Okay.
And you put your seed in, and once a week you probably bring the seed droplings in and throw them way out in your garage, or put them in your flower bed, compost them.
Okay.
But that's a beautiful little feeder, and I think it's the #1 seller on Amazon. So I would just say just some really small things, and you'll start to be like, oh, that's a red-breasted nuthatch. Oh, that's a tufted titmouse. Oh, that's a dark-eyed junco. You might just think, oh, we just have bird. Oh, a bird came to the bird feeder. But eventually, you'll still really start to notice some beautiful things coming into your home.
That's cool. Thank you. I love your passion for this, and I love you sharing all of this. I
love you.
The tips and the tricks. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For the record, Josh and I both attend the same church, so we know each other quite well.
Yeah, thanks for the clarifier.
For our audience.
Yeah.
And you said something, and I think it's very timely right now, since we're all having to stay inside or stay with our loved ones. And you said to slow down and listen. And that not just for birds, but also for our families. So listen to your wife, listen to your kids, listen to your pets, listen to birds. And so it's a great time to pick up a skill and do something or explore something new. And I've for anyone out there who has put off trying something new or investing in something, now you have plenty of time. No excuses. So we have plenty of time.
That's right.
But anyway, anything else?
No, just I think you said it well, Major. Slow down and just listen to the birds.
You said it, not me. I'm just repeating what you said. So thank you. Josh, this has been a pleasure. Thanks for joining me. Wasn't too bad, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Major, for letting me just share about something I love.
Anytime. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks again, Josh. Really appreciate this. Stay on the line, and I will roll this outro. And maybe I'll have you back on to talk maybe we'll do a birding part 2 or something. So later on.
Sounds good.
And I'll let you know when this is up.
Okay.
So
great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, that has been, I haven't even put an episode number on these yet. I'm getting a few in the can before I release them, but I don't know what episode number this will be. But yeah, thanks for joining us today on the Creative Liberty Podcast. Thanks again to Josh for joining me, and I'm going to roll that outro. Again, this is the Creative Liberty Podcast where we're quarantined and I can't have people at my studio. So I'm just having them on the phone and we're talking about stuff they love, things that they do, things that are creative. Hopefully this is inspiring to you as it is to me. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this episode. I want to thank Josh again. He is a birder. And if you guys are interested in birds, listen to this podcast again. Write down those apps. I'm going to put everything in the show notes. And I will see you guys on the next podcast. Peace.